So, because there's this link between the scriptures and science, then you have to ask yourself, how did these men were able to write things of science when they didn't even know that they were writing things of science? Well, there's this thing that people call the Holy Spirit. They receive inspiration from the Holy Spirit. And you've got to ask yourself, how? Well, obviously, if, they didn't have all the scientific instruments that we have to be able to detect DNA, an electron microscope or the Hubble telescope to look at black holes, or, machinery to clean the blood, how were they able to write of things of science when they didn't have any of that? Okay, so then that kind of explains the Holy Spirit, right? Inspiration by the Holy Spirit. Well, that sounds like Wi-Fi to me, right? However it is that this Holy Spirit is operating in a way that is analogous to Wi-Fi, because you got the brain, you got neurons, you got synapses, you got electrons. Well, something has to be affecting it from the outside to the inside. Wi-Fi. And so, because of that, then, you could conclude that other things in the Bible are true when it says that God knows all your thoughts. Well, if there's a signal that could come from the outside to the brain to affect the brain, to cause it to think things, then there must be a way in reverse. Well, it says that God knows all your thoughts. So we could try to put. I mean, it doesn't mean that I am right? Because of course it's just ideas that I have in my brain. But let's just say that God is a universal intelligence, and that the whole universe is God, right? Because it's made up of matter, and matter has the ability to think and be creative. And then you can't, you look at. Scientists say there was an event called the Big Bang that exploded, 13.5 billion years ago. Well, the idea that the universe itself is 13.5 billion years old is preposterous to me, because there had to be something there to explode to begin with. So, no, you could call it an event that happened 13.5 billion years ago. So I'm going to say this, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, right? God is the entire universe, and God became aware of itself. And so it collapsed itself into a singularity and exploded into an infinite number of vectors, thereby creating, the planets and the galaxies and whatnot. And the creation all throughout. And why should we suspect that something like that is true? Well, you could see the Fibonacci sequence in everything, from the galaxies down to, us. In math and science, there's that Fibonacci sequence. And so I'm going to call the Fibonacci sequence, quote unquote, the signature of God, right? To show that everything is linked. But this intelligence, what would be the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to create a copy of itself. Because if you're alone in the universe, right, then you would want to, and you have all this power to control matter at will, then your ultimate goal would be to create a copy of yourself. Well, the scriptures tells you that we are created in the likeness and image of God. It also say that when you are serving your fellow beings, you are in the service of your God. Well, that is much analogous to what we are, because We are a consciousness that has within itself 60 to 100 trillion copies of itself that continue to replicate and in various ways, right? Not just in cell creation, which it creates your body over and over through your lifetime, but also through procreation, by fertilizing the egg of another human being, and it creates another copy of yourself, if you will. And the cycle goes on, right? So that would appear to be the goal of itself, to create copies of itself. And so we are copies of God. And, you could take this in various different ways, but the fact is that we are here. We are part of this existence. We are the result of a recursive process. And as I look at what we are and what we're doing, it shows me that what's happening here is the physical manifestation of intelligence, of the full cycle of knowledge. And so let me explain that. If you had to recreate everything within the earth that is up to this point, the camera that is pointing at me, the computer, the chair, everything, before you could do that, you would need people. You would need lots of people. Because you need people to mine the fields, you need people to be creative, have artistic design. So you need, and those people, they get hurt, so they need doctors, and those people get in trouble, so you need lawyers, and everything that is in society is needed to say, for example, quote unquote, create this chair, or the camera, or the car. So everything that we see around us is the physical manifestation of ideas that were here before, right? And in the scriptures it tells you also, there's nothing new under the sun, which means everything has been done before. But it's been manifested physically through us. Well, there's more manifestations to come. Imagine that we are, I don't know how long it will take. I mean, there's a whole lot of progress with regards to reverse engineering ourselves. But let's just say that we get to a point, however long it takes, whereby we have fully reversed DNA, reverse engineered DNA. Okay? And now here we are, we not only reverse engineer DNA, but we created spaceships, and we could travel throughout the galaxy, and here we found some planets that are uninhabited. You could certainly, for example, transport people to those planets, and that's how you would populate that planet. But since you have all this knowledge about how to create life already, right? Because you reverse engineer DNA, and you want to tinker with things, well, you plant the seed that will eventually create everything that we have. Dinosaurs, birds, elephants, whales, humans, monkeys, chickens, electronics, cars, planes, scientists that reverse engineer DNA, spaceships, all of it. You would go through that cycle again. Well, that's what's happening with us. We're going through a cycle of recreating things. We are going through a cycle of the physical manifestation of all the intelligence that there is, i.e., God. You don't know it yet, but yes, we will get to a point where we will fully reverse engineer DNA. You don't know it yet, but yes, we will get to a point where we are traveling through space. Because there is nothing new under the sun. Everything that will ever be already was. And so we're just another cycle. Now, whether or not all these things are true or not, we as human beings have the duty, the obligation to be respectful to one another, to care for one another, to do the right thing, to choose to do the right thing. Independently of whether anything that you've heard from me today is true or not, you have that obligation. And to me, before you could call yourself anything, you would have to call yourself a human being. And if you're calling yourself a human being, then it is your duty and obligation to choose to do the right thing. I do believe that there is an intelligence that is watching over us, looking at us, hoping that we would make the right decisions, not only individually, but collectively. And whether you believe that to be true or not, it's only going to be good for our benefit, both individually and collectively, to choose to do the right thing. Thank you.